So, is James Gunn really in charge? We got a new report that seems to indicate the possibilities that James Gunn really does not have total control over the new DCU. Let's talk about where the story is coming from, if it's an overreaction, and why the comparisons to Kevin Feige's level of control are a little misleading. Well, as many of you know, James Gunn is currently setting up his new DC universe. Right now we have Creature Commandos, Waller, and Superman Legacy headed our way in the coming years. And we've been hearing over and over again that James Gunn is leading this charge to shepherd in a new era for DC Studios with his, and I quote, powerful vision and blueprint. Now, for the longest time, many DC movies seem to suffer from studio interference. Quite a few projects got studio notes or pushback from executives, which ultimately led to the creative's effort being undermined and delivering us, well, subpar products. There's probably not a greater example than David Ayer's Suicide Squad, which was taken from what he called a soulful movie and trashed into a comedy. This has led to many fans kind of being a bit distraught with DC, and when we found out James Gunn was leading the charge, well, this actually sparked hope for many people because we were told Warner Brothers executives would not be interfering. Now, we've got a new report from Variety, and they seem to indicate things remain at least a little unclear exactly how much control Gunn and Safran have. But I want to put an asterisk beside this because I don't think it's what it means. Now, apparently this comes into effect when it comes to streaming content that will be owned by the WB Max streaming service. And according to the report, unlike Kevin Feige, WB and Max will, and I quote, be creatively involved with the DC slate. Now, we all know Kevin Feige is the king of all things Marvel and sits atop Marvel Studios, reporting up to Disney brass. So are Gunn and Safran set up the same way, or is there something different going on? Well, it sounds to me like we need to think about a couple of things here, because first and foremost, he's working with the streaming service. And we're getting reports that working with Max executives Sarah Abry and Casey Boyles is, quote, seamless, as they bring to life the first Batman spin-off, The Penguin. Now, Gunn has made it pretty clear DC is separate from Warner Brothers, and I actually do think he has a lot of autonomy, but there is a good reason he's not quite the Kevin Feige of the DCU yet, and that's pretty simple. Money. Many people seem to forget that the early phases of the MCU, going all the way from Iron Man through Civil War, Kevin Feige wasn't in charge. Kevin Feige ran Marvel Studios, but he reported to Ike Perlmutter, and ultimately the behind-the-scenes drama with Perlmutter and him basically being cheap and undermining the project, while Feige put Disney on notice that he was going to leave, and then Disney brass put him in charge of everything Marvel. Now, why did they do that? Well, that's pretty simple to me. Marvel movies were making $1 billion a pop, film after film. In other words, the project was making so much money, that increased revenue gave Kevin Feige the power and the leverage. They have the autonomy that's given us the grander MCU. Pretty clear to me that Peter Safran is working the business side and Gunn is working the creative side, and more than likely, David Zaslav is sitting right in the back seat, whispering in their ear, and still has some influence on what's going on. Now, once these projects start producing revenue, and if they're really successful, well, I'm sure the intent is to be hands-off and allow things to move forward, because ultimately, what Warner Brothers wants to do is make money, and his projects have yet to be given the chance to do exactly that. I think it's completely unfair to compare James Gunn to Kevin Feige at this point. He just took over the newly created DC Studios. They're in the early days of their plan, and the penny pinchers and brass that sit above him, just like Kevin Feige has penny pinchers and brass that sit above him, well, they have to get some faith in his efforts, and he hasn't been given the chance to do that yet. Overall, I don't think us DC faithful should get too perturbed over the idea of some DC executives working with the DC Studios head. Like I said, these things have reportedly been seamless, and Gunn is a team player who knows how to work with other people, so I don't think any of this is a problem. Ultimately, it's going to matter how good these new projects are and how financially successful they are, and we have a couple years to wait before any of that happens, so we're going to have to wait and see.